call to order the Tuesday, July 23rd, regular meeting of Dayton City Council. Stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Dave is out. We'll need a motion and a second for the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? We got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. Consent agenda. I know, motion and a second.
I'll motion it.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I've got some questions.
Go ahead.
So, Chief, for the hazard mitigation plan,
Yes, Councilman
it's
Trost.
just maybe it's just the first time I've seen it, but I had some questions on it. First, who and how who chose kind of what went as our follow-ups, and how did they get on there? Is that something you did, or did Hennepin County do it? Who
No,
put
this
those
is
as like the risks?
Yeah, so it's a collaboration between Marty, myself, and Chief Inga.
Okay.
As a result, as it relates to like significant storm damage, maybe storms, tornadoes, fires, stuff of that nature. So we'll use the example of the Crow River with embankments. You know, if we get erosion there, we get some other issues. We have, in EOC, we have our EOC is over at Public Works, along with PD, but some improvements need to be made there. So it's really based upon, wind, storms, fires, so forth is kind of what it's all based on. And then we take a look at what might be needed in order to mitigate those things.
And then on there, it listed funding sources, but the funding source said numbers next to them. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't find a correlation to the funding sources for those items and what those numbers meant.
Yeah, so there isn't necessarily funding sources associated with those.
Okay.
Those are just specific dollars that we believe it would take to fix or improve those things
Okay.
that are listed. And then what happens is, let's use the Waterville incident as an example, where they had a bunch of flooding. And if we were impacted, we'd be able to submit to the state. There's a state level reimbursement level, and then there's a federal reimbursement level. It's based upon different factors. But I believe, I don't recall for the Waterville incident if they've reached the federal threshold yet. I think they potentially have. And then what we do is, if we're impacted, we have the ability to tag on to that and then try to figure out if we can mitigate certain things within the community based on those resources. So that's really the only opportunity that we have to gain those dollars if a federal declaration or a state declaration has taken place.
So some of those things seem preventative, so we have to wait for an emergency before the state or federal government will help us? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
No, we don't have to. I mean, it's a
Well, if we
matter of-
want funding, though, outside of the city.
outside of the city, yeah, we can. And Paul can fill in some gaps as well because he was here.
Councilmember Trost, so what happens is if there's a large tornado that affects numerous throughout Minnesota and we reach the federal declaration, that money that doesn't get spent goes into mitigation stuff. So like the storm shelter down in the trailer park, we were able to, being it was on our mitigation plan, we were able to submit for FEMA funding
Okay.
to get the dollar amount to pay 75% of the storm shelter through FEMA. Same with the generators that we're doing right
Yep.
now. 75% of that comes from FEMA because we have it in our hazard mitigation plan. We need it in our mitigation plan to get federal funding for it.
So this is
Okay.
the first step to get the funding that we
Correct.
want to fix
Got
this.
it.
Okay. So the next question, there are timelines on there on some of those things.
Thank
and
you.
I didn't see a lot of those on the capital improvement plan either. So are there no timelines to fix some of those things? They're just not on the capital improvement plan. Should they be on the capital improvement plan?
So the city's portion of it is 25% if we ever go for a grant to do like the stabilization projects along
Okay.
the Mississippi or the Crow.
But some of those are like
or
water
sirens.
storage, like some of them are like large amounts of water storage in case there was an emergency, right? Like some of these are,
Yeah, that is actually related to what we've already trying to get with the water tower.
Gotcha.
In Old
Okay.
Town for fire suppression and that stuff. So some of that stuff, that's what we're trying to recognize the needs for within the community. So if dollars become available,
Okay.
if we're not able to fund it ourselves.
okay. Are there items that the three of you are gonna propose get added to the CIP because they're more urgent than others? Or is this all just kinda like, we've been through an exercise and that's the end of it? Like, what's next, I guess, is my question. I mean, we're gonna approve this thing, and I don't really know if you're reading it, what's next?
Nothing has to be next. It depends on a project. If we come to a project that we decide that is going to need to happen, and we can fund it through FEMA, that's where you would look at dollars and where to put dollars. Right now, we have no projects that we're looking at accomplishing or going for grants for at this time, so we're not putting anything on the CIP to fund that 25%.
And is there a reason that we're not going to get funding from the federal government for any of these right now? Are they all that low risk in your opinion, or what's driving our decision there?
A lot of it, I mean, the erosion control, obviously, we don't have a huge issue with flooding outside of that, the one house maybe, that gets impacted from the Mississippi. You know, if we could get, there's some things that we need to make an improvement, like for the EOC, there's technology that needs to be improved there. We could use a backup facility. We could put some of those things in. There's many opportunities throughout that whole list that we could put in there.
It was a long list, yeah. That's why, I mean, so I'm just trying to figure out what comes next.
Yeah, no, and that's a valid question. I think it's an opportunity to sit down and go through it. But again, we're trying to prioritize, along with you, to prioritize what dollars and what things are needed, probably maybe over others in some capacity. Obviously, we made an attempt with the state legislature for the water tower.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're still pursuing that. But a lot of it, the hazard mitigation plan is put together so that we are eligible for funding if it ever comes available. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't fund it ourselves, but I haven't honestly, and Paul and I haven't had a lot of time to sit down and look at, okay, how would we fund this? What would be the priorities in that capacity? This was a thing that got thrown to us because they do it every 5 years. So at Hennepin County, say, hey, we need to get this done. It was, we sat down and did it, but then the opportunity to implement that into the CIP, that hasn't taken place yet.
Yeah. Okay. I think it'd be good for us to understand, at least for me to, like, if you're to list those priority-wise, which are the highest priority for the city and which are the lowest priority. I think that's helpful because some of those things aren't, I'm going to say, everything costs money. They're not super expensive. Like, some of them were like 20 grand or something. It wasn't anything crazy. And so, especially if we have to go get FEMA dollars for it, I want to make sure we have our ducks in a row so we know what that looks like if we're going to do it.
Sure, yeah, my plan for emergency management is actually to bring in, because I don't think it's very well known as far as responsibilities for council. So the idea for next year, probably early in the year, I want to bring in somebody to provide education to council on what responsibilities are at that level, and then it'll kind of go from there. But trying to get my feet under me as it relates to other things, it hasn't been a high priority. It should be a high priority, but it's just based on time.
Thank you. I've got one more question for you on a different subject. The fire truck that we're donating,
Yes.
if we were to sell that to the company that we buy and you buy vehicles from, did they ever give us a dollar amount of what they think the vehicle would sell for?
They didn't. They weren't interested. I asked them if they're interested, and
That
there was
low.
there was no value to them
Okay.
on what we could get for it.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I have.
Anybody else? All right. We got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Consent's approved 4-0. We're on to open forum. Anybody here for open forum? Going forward. Open forum is limited to 3 minutes for non-agenda items. State your name and address. No council action will be taken, and items will be referred back to staff. Come on up. Yep. You state your name and address, and then we'll have you fill out a sheet.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Perfect.
Just
He's
make sure
all
you-
over it.
Just make sure you speak clearly into the,
Move the,
speak clearly into the
move the
microphone.
microphone over here.
You okay? We can pass them down.
Yeah, we
if
can
it's
pass it
easier.
on.
My name is John Waldron. I'm at 209 York at the Dayton Mobile Home Park, and I'm going to try to make this quick. I'm addressing a few of the issues and concerns that we've had there at the park. Obviously, you all are aware that we've been bought and sold a few times over the past 4 years, and really haven't had the proper adequate management at the park. I want to address E and G on this here sheet. It comes from the website, the American Legal Publishing, which I got a copy of this from Dayton City Hall here last year. Again, E and G are parking issues and concerns. There shall be adequate areas of parking for the park. We don't have that. We haven't had that since the park has been bought and sold a few times and downsized. So a huge concern is the parking. We've tried addressing this several times with prior management and the current management without success. Also, proper management at the park, which would be G. Manager, an adult caretaker, a manager must be on duty or in and about the mobile home park at all times. There shall be an office for the use of the manager, distinctly marked office, and such marking shall be illuminated during all hours of darkness. Pretty much, we just have one property manager there, and our office is only open Monday through Friday during normal business hours. Any other calls would go to a call center, after hours, or routed to another property manager when our manager is not on site. We do not have a full-time maintenance guy, maintenance on site. They bring in somebody for maintenance 1 day a week, and also they sub out the other maintenance needs for the park, such as lawn care and various things like that. So if there's an emergency, we do not have anybody on site, and that's a huge concern for everybody in the park. I guess like right now today, I'm just trying to bring this to the city council's attention. New owners of August, tenant management and maintenance, part-time, covered that, yeah, because they purchased the park last August, I believe it was, and we only had management there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, part-time, and half the time they'd have the office doors locked. So it wasn't until this last April that we had somebody there, and she's actually from a different state with the owners of the park. So just, I don't know, I'm trying to cut this because I got the 3 minutes, but yeah, just things that we need to hopefully be able to address and get the help from City Hall and City Council and start addressing for the residents at the Dayton Mobile Home Park.
Okay, thank you.
This is from ARCO?
Yes.
It is? Okay.
Okay.
So you guys follow up on that then? Thank you.
Yeah, and I was informed that, the city of Dayton would follow the state's codes and ordinances when it comes to this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else for open forum?
Yes. My name is Shelley Nimitz. I live at 39 Auburn Drive in Dayton Park. I've been there
Did you also
26
fill out a sheet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
I did. I've lived there 26 years, and I've seen a lot of stuff go on. And the most thing that's bothered me lately is when they allowed Quick Trip to go in. There was no signs put up, no speed limits, nothing for over a year. Now there's a sign, there's digitals, there's trucks racing up and down the roads. I've got videos. I've got where they run over the median, come into our park on my street. I've had to block my windows off so that the truck drivers that are parking there at night are not looking in. Their vehicles run all night long. We have kids that play on that street. I'm really concerned about those kids. I would like to see some speed bumps put in there on their road, and their grass is not cut. I've got bad allergies. I've ended up in the hospital twice since they have not cut their grass. They tried to on a rainy day, and it broke the underneath of the tractors and stuff. They've never come back since. So it looks really horrible. As a Quick Trip being, quote, a good company, they're sure not doing good by their neighbors at all. And then also, the warehouses that are allowed behind there. It was filthy, dirty, there was no water trucks out there, the mounds are not being mowed. Some of the neighbors' yards are getting flooded because the mounds are right up to the back of there is no gap at all on those mounds, none of that stuff. And people are having to clean out their driveways because they're full of water and stuff, and it's not appropriate that we should have to live like this, paying the taxes we pay. Not in that town. Because Dayton is a well-known town, and we shouldn't have to deal with any of that. I shouldn't have to block my windows off so people don't look in. I would like a wall put up there, not shrubbery, because I have a tree in my backyard that's 150 years old. It's hooked to my water pipe and my sewer pipes. I've asked them, I've wrote them a letter to try to get it trimmed. It's ruining the top of my roof. My trailer's older, and it's ruining my neighbor's roof. It's hanging over that far to where I can see it out my living room window. The maintenance is not good there, but mainly my concern right now is the Quick Trip Road, 118. I want something done about that because I am not happy with what's going on there on that road. We're getting semis in there, we're getting dump trucks full of dirt, we're getting tar. They're coming in on our access, which is deemed a city access, an easement. And that shouldn't be, those heavy vehicles shouldn't be coming into our main with that big of a load. FedEx told me to F off the other day when I told them they're supposed to go in the other way and come around. We've called them. The police station has called them also. And I don't think as citizens of Dayton we should be treated like that, or this problem should have been handled when this Quick Trip went up. This should not have been done like this. Because you're going to put shrubbery in, the management told me. It's going to attach to the water main there. And then it's going to go right, because I have mains that come off that water main. Go right to the corner of my trailer. And the sewer mains. And they're already getting plugged. Last fall we had over, I would say, 50 breaks on the water mains already. And that's a lot in an older trailer park. Because when Gary owned it, they would fix them as they broke it. These guys are taking 4 to 5 hours, 6 hours a day to fix our water mains. And I don't know what's going on. And every so often we'll get a text stating our water mains are going out, or our water's going out. Well, we don't get the text until 2 hours later some days, and then we get it, and then the water doesn't go off. Then they're coming in with the big trucks, trying to empty out the sewer on Burns, 42 Burns there. There's a big sewer thing in their backyard. So, I mean,
Okay.
those big trucks are just not acceptable because we're going to end up paying the maintenance, because if we can get a tonnage sign at the front entrance where those big, huge semis cannot come in, that would help out a lot, because those mains are going to break. I think that park is 80 years old, somewhere in there. I don't want to pay for the trucks coming in. I'm taking pictures and videos, because if it comes down to it, I will hire an attorney. I'm just done. I can't sleep at night, the noise, my dogs are constantly barking. There's no room for this kind of mistake that shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened at all.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Can I just add one more thing real quick about our management?
Okay. They need to speak into the thing here. So that was a car crash.
Just real quick about our management and the lack of management there. Right now, currently, the office is closed, and there's a sign on the front door that says the office will be closed July 18th through 25th. Please call, and then they give the number for assistance with questions and emergencies. And all it is just their call center, where it's going to be routed. So there's nobody on site. So for a week, nobody's there. And this has happened a couple of times already over the past few months, where the current manager would take time off and nobody would be there to fill in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for open forum? All right. Is anybody online for open forum?
So if you're online to speak in open forum, if you use the raise your hand function. I've not seen any.
Okay, we will move on to staff consultant council updates. Zach?
Yep. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm still getting caught up from being off last week, so I have nothing. So thank you very much.
All right.
Great news is we survived last week.
You would.
But this Friday, so on the 26th, direct balloting will start for the primary that's happening right now. So if you're interested in absentee voting, starting on Friday, you get to put your ballot into the ballot machine is all that means. And that will happen up until the day before Election Day. On Election Day, you will go to your polling location.
All right.
Thank you.
Marty?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've got a couple of things this time. Danielle and I have been working with a company called I9 Sports. They run some summer camps, particularly through Anoka Hennepin schools. They wanted to do a standalone project and asked Dayton if they could do something here. So we're going to run a pilot scheme with them on Brianna Scurry Field here. It's going to run from August 12th, which is a Monday, to Friday, August the 16th. It's a half-day program from 9 till 12. There'll be 3 sports included in there, flag football, soccer and baseball. The program is focused basically on skill improvement, so there's not going to be a lot of wear and tear on the fields out there. They provide all the equipment, they do the setup and they do the tear down, they market the program and they handle all the registration. There will be a fee paid to City of Dayton for using the fields. I did speak with CDAA to let them know we were going to do this. Their only concern was that there would be some wear and tear on the field. However, their football season finishes on August 9th, so they shouldn't really interfere with that. So, we'll see how that goes and see how many people get registered. Moving on to roads, the Mill and Overlay project, Thicket Hills Mill and Overlay has been completed, other than the punch list there. 152nd has been milled and patchwork completed. There's still some prep work to do over there. They're planning on paving either Friday or the following Monday. Chip and fog seal project, we had a pre-con today. They're going to start moving in the chip material, hauling it into the old public works shop there for stockpiling. They are planning on starting the chip seal Wednesday and Thursday next week. Then the following Monday they will broom that off, and then the following Friday they will broom it off again to get rid of the excess rock, and then the following Monday they will be doing the fog seal part of that. It's a loose timeline at the moment, but they're going to send me something that I'll put up on the website.
They're going to get all the streets done in that timeline?
Say again?
They're going to get all the streets done in that timeline?
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
The streetlights on Territorial are being repaired, the copper wire that was removed. They started on that.
Did you say removed?
Say again?
They're being removed or
I
being
used the diplomatic term there. There's going to be a little bit of an impact to completing the project because the OPES project have got to move 2 of the street lights on the run. So we'll get up to those, and once those have been replaced in a new spot, we'll connect those up as well, and then the whole thing will be done. So that's probably going to be end of August until it's
So there was no alternative solutions looked at for all that copper?
I asked about using aluminum, and they said, well, it's not as conductive as the copper, so you would end up going thicker cable doing that. So I did ask for a couple of different things there. There wasn't really a valid solution other than using the copper. That's all I have for this week.
Garrett?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Just an update on hiring. We're into the home stretch, if you will, of bringing on 4 new firefighters that are currently being seen by medical at this time, and hopefully have them on board middle of next month sometime.
Oh, nothing. John?
August 27th is a work session for the master plan.
Yippee.
Yippee.
And Scott?
I got one little deal. I attended the concert on Friday at Stevens Park, and in the park, on one of the little signpost deals, there's a little sign that says, "Hey, we're looking for donators for next year's summer series." Finding great that we're looking for that. I mean,
Sorry, I think we're all clueless. I don't know what you're talking about.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
oh, well, anyway, apparently we're having a summer series next year, possibly.
Was this maybe done by the band?
No, it's our sign.
But that was donation thing. Oh, that was for Waterville, probably.
Yeah, that was for Waterville. That was the only donation thing down there.
No, it says summer series right on the sign.
Did you get a picture?
Anyway,
Well, that's the
Yeah,
only
I
thing
seen
Anyway.
something about donation too. I thought it was odd. A sign.
Where I'm
Looked like
going
the
with
city
it.
was taking donations for something.
we're a year away, so we don't need to get concerned about it.
Sounds good.
Where I'm going with that is I have a lot of disappointment that we just all of a sudden dropped everything at Stevens and we're not doing nothing there. As far as the shelters. We came up with a couple alternatives there. They just went right out the wayside.
Nope, they haven't gone out. We need to get engineering drawings sorted out for those and do it through the normal process that we do for bidding any of those kind of shelters. Otherwise, we're not going to get apples to apples comparisons on the prices, and we'll end up, potentially with some change orders for things that happen on site. So I want to do it the right way, so we get good solid bids. It's the same thing that we're doing with the irrigation and the other bridge there. So it's the same process. We're just taking it out of the bigger contract and just separating these out as smaller things to see if we can get them done this year.
So we're going to still try to get them done.
We're trying
this
to get them done this year. Paul's working on it now.
That's reassuring, because otherwise the whole summer series is pushed out until 26.
I hear you.
I mean, most entertainment bands will not perform at that stage.
I hear you.
Okay. All right.
So, did I understand you right? Initially, I thought you guys were looking at another source for the design work.
We are looking at another source for the master plan update. If we want to revisit this next year's stuff, we can certainly do that. Paul is a long way along with the project. I don't know if another company would want to step in and pick it up at this stage, but I can certainly ask if that's where the council wants to go with it. I've talked to at least 2 other companies that are interested in the master plan, and I'm sure if we wanted them to do something with where we're at now with the project, I can certainly ask those questions if that's what you guys want to do.
Yeah, personally, I think we should have somebody else looking at this.
It does seem like, especially over the frustration that you guys had, it seems like that was not very well predicted, and suddenly we're a year out, effectively. I don't know, I would...
I mean, if one company's too busy,
I'd
I
entertain
call another company to get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just a long way down the process here, so the handover is going to take a little bit of time and try and get the feedback to why we ended up where we're at now, what the playground looks like, what those sizes are. I mean, if it comes down to just putting a bid package together from what we got and then putting it out to bid, I think, I don't know how much time we will save, but, if we want to use a different company for it, then I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Let me know what you guys...
Going forward, we definitely need to look at other companies, or we have these, put them out and say we want to get this work done this coming year, come bid on these projects and give us a timeline. I think that's helpful. For this year, I'm kind of on the fence just because I don't know if it's really going to speed anything along. I think it's all going to get, even if we move to someone else, I think it's going to be the same timelines if we don't move to someone else.
For this one.
For this year's project.
Future problem.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
For future, definitely, I would be looking to do RFPs for, the next
For
parts
future
and stuff,
projects.
and for the master plan for sure.
Is there any way we can... so I guess the bottom line is there's not much we can do about
This year's.
Well,
I
he's still thinking about trying to do something. I mean, that's at least somewhat reassuring, rather than hey, we'll just wait for the other guy to get his ducks in a row, and everybody will sit and do nothing for a year. That's just not good with me.
I know. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to keep
Okay.
the project moving forward. That's where I want to get to. At the very least, I want to be in a good position to bid early next year, so we got a chance of getting a good early start late spring rather than in the summer. So,
Okay.
if we can get all the planning and everything done by the end of this year, we should be in a really good shape to get something in there finished next year. I want to get all of the project finished next year, all 3 parks.
Yeah,
All right, cool.
that's
Anything
it.
else?
Well, the only other thing I've got is, I thank somebody for the glasses, the repaired glasses, brand new set or something here.
I try to find pink ones.
I would, it wouldn't bother me. And on the payment of claims, Paul, there's your $11,000 car, that's for the motor, I'm assuming? And there was no coverage there? Really?
We state that.
Yeah.
Should have been a Chevy.
Clearly you're done. Travis?
done.
Attended the concert in the park, and I thought it was actually quite a blast. It was good to meet people, and the little inconvenient time that I had to spend away, but I got back to see it to wrap it up, and I thought it was a really cool little show. It's cool to see them grow every year that we
well
put them
done.
on. So I really enjoyed myself there. So yeah, it's on a high note.
So I attended, Metro Cities had a meeting with the Met Council to go over what they're going to be covering on for the 2050 comp plans. Something Zach mentioned a couple updates ago. So they're changing the minimum density of the category we're in from 3 per acre to 4 per acre. And they had a lot of excuses such as greenhouse gas, global warming, and a few others. But the bottom line is they're going to go to 4. And what was odd was they agreed that the category we're in emerging suburban.
Suburban edge.
Yeah.
That's correct.
They agreed that everybody in that category exceeded their goals, but they're going to push for 4 regardless, because the other categories apparently didn't meet their criteria. They're also saying that they're going to implement a policy of limiting MUSA growth. And when I asked, can we move our MUSA lines, I got a very quick no. So they want to limit the growth, but they don't want to change what they have. And the other thing was they mentioned that there's enough land in their current MUSA line to get them housing out to 2150. Not 2050, they said 2150. So they have plenty of land in that MUSA border. They said they would be open to reducing the MUSA, but they effectively said don't hold your breath. And then they said they wanted to give flexibility to the cities, and I have no idea what that meant, because I didn't hear that. The other thing they announced was the average densities they're going to calculate per decade now instead of over the plan. So the plans typically get them 20 plus years, and so what they were seeing was what you would expect. People are bunching high density up in out years and doing lower density in the current, so they're going to clamp down on that. That was the gist of the meeting, and that's all I got.
I think like everyone else up here, I attended the event and tell Daniel she did a great job, so it was good. And then the other thing that I think I'd like to see in the next city council meeting, if we could have a conversation around term limits for commissions, I think it'd be helpful. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, we're on to item G, budget discussion.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, members of council. We have talked about both sides of the budget, and by both sides, I mean the general fund side and also the CIP side. So we had a meeting at the beginning of June for the general fund side of things. We had a meeting at the last council meeting for a work session related to the CIP or long-term plan. I did not change anything or update anything based on what we've talked about so far. What looking tonight is department directors and myself are looking for responses or feedback from the council. What I have on the screen right now on the left-hand side of the screen is the current tax levy and the potential increase or proposed increase by department directors based on the conversations we've had so far. The right-hand side is to show what the tax rate would do with the said tax levy increase in the left-hand side. So what residents need to look at is the tax rate number on the bottom. If the tax rate number goes up, that means that you will pay slightly more taxes next year. If your house value stays the same, if it stays the same, your house and your house value stays the same, you will pay the same amount of taxes next year, no matter what the tax levy increase is on the left-hand side. So it is critical that you look at the tax rate and not just the tax levy increase. Although it is a factor in there, it is not the direct factor. As you can see, the tax capacity went up quite a bit, and that's the top line on the right-hand side of that screen. It went from 23.2 to 26.9. Most of that, or 14.2% of that increase, that's about a 16%, 16.2% increase. 14.2% of that is from new growth or new items in town, not from previous growth. The average house went up about 1% in Hennepin County in the city of Dayton for 2025 from 2024. I do want to show one more quick thing before we just get discussing. If this thing wants to move, there we go.
What was that?
Oh, yep.
That capacity, what was the increase percentage-wise?
16.2%.
16, okay.
Yep, 16.2% was the total increase. 14.2 of that is related to new growth.
Yep.
And then the 2% difference there is an average of households and values and commercial businesses and so on and so forth. The average house value went up 1%. That's what I've been told by Hennepin County. This is what the impact on a tax bill if your house stayed the exact same value year over year. The left-hand side, the second column in that says 2024 actual, is the amount of dollars that the city of Dayton would take in from a home of that valuation on the left-hand column. The third column over with the information of 2025 preliminary is how much you would pay next year in taxes. So for the average home of $525, you would pay $22 more a year, or $1.83 per month more in taxes based on the current requested amount by city staff. I'm going to go back to the previous screen. If the council has any questions, we can always go back to that screen there. But myself, along with program directors, are here to stand for any questions you may have, any comments. Hopefully provided enough information for the council to make some comments or decisions on or whatever, and we can have discussion. So.
One of the things I had a question on was the one-pagers?
Yep, CIP one-pagers, yes.
I didn't see the funding sources on there. I know some of those were already funded.
By different sources, you mean?
Yeah.
By grants or by...
Or as if we already parked the money from last year.
I did not add funding sources as part of the CIP one-pagers.
So that might be kind of nice, because it'd be nice to see, we've already funded this thing. It's
okay. Yeah, the only two that we have funded that are in that plan at all, or 100% funded, are the pumper tender for the fire department. That's been it'll be fully funded next year in 2025 or 2026. Sorry, with the $475,000 dedicated for the tanker engine, the tanker for Station 1. Once that has been done, then that will be fully funded, that pumper tender that we ordered. But that is the only thing that's been fully funded in that plan that I'm aware of.
okay. So all the capital required for next year,
Yes.
comes right out of the levy.
Comes right out of the levy, that is correct. Yeah. I think it's roughly $1 million is the amount of equipment. I think it's staying close, at least in the capital equipment fund. Yeah, it's $1,051,000. We did move $6,500 of that, which is the appliance replacement, which I sent out the updated long-term plan to council on 2 weeks ago's weekly update. That moved the $6,500 out to 2028 for the appliance replacement at the activity center, just because we don't need the appliances replaced. We had previous staff that thought we needed to, and we did not. So. But really, it's about $1 million worth of equipment.
So then a question that I would add to that would be, if you go through them all, basically the loader's got to go on the levy. The Toro lawnmower would go on the levy.
Yep.
What brings in a question then is, it would be helpful to know, I know there's, like the 1-ton truck that's on there. We've had a couple of trucks for 3-4 years on the CIP, but we haven't bought them. So that money is sitting someplace, or maybe it's gone already.
Nope,
Dedicated.
still sitting there.
I think we purchased all the backlog trucks. They all came in this year. I think there was 1 ton and 2 F-350s, I think, and then there was the bigger trucks as well, the single axle and the tandem.
Correct.
It would be really helpful to know. There's like 4 years of signs at $150,000 or so.
That's
that are
at a
sitting-
different fund, yep, that's
Yep,
in the 410 fund, yep.
But it would really be helpful to know what kind of money is just sitting around, because I can't see spending $150,000 on city signs in the next couple of years for sure. I mean,
Yeah, so there is on every fund, there is a back sheet on every one of those funds that shows the cash flow for them.
okay.
And there is a 2023 actual column that shows what actually is in the bank right now for that fund. And that's where you see how much is available currently.
Okay, okay.
So the 401 fund is currently negative because we prepaid for that pumper tender at Station 1, and we're going to use future levy to pay for that. And that's why it will be out of negative once we get to that point where we have all of it funded from 2026, I believe is when the last 475,000 comes in, but all of the other funds have a balance in there, so I'll go to the 410 fund that you just referenced related to the signs. Right now in the 410 fund at the end of the year, we had $1.28 million. That's on that second sheet of that fund,
All right.
410. It says 2023 actual column.
Okay.
And it has a cash balance in there. What we have in there currently that has not been spent.
And rather than levying more, as long as if we're not going to buy it, whatever that piece of equipment is, we might as well just drain that money and use it for something other than levying for it, in my opinion.
But you're taking, so if you were to use it to buy capital equipment, I could get behind that. Using one-time money to offset reoccurring charges that are in the levy just sets up next year for then you to be in a deficit.
If you're going to purchase it next,
It's all
yeah.
fungible.
I get that. That's why I said if you're going to take the money out of pot A to buy something from pot B, but pot B is not a reoccurring cost, that's fine, in my mind. If you're going to use that to lower the levy percentage, then you get in a problem where the next year you're short.
No, you'd use it to pay for capital, one-time use.
That's what I just said.
That's already going into the levy.
Yes, as long as that money is earmarked for one-time use, yes.
Yeah, no, I agree that one-time use money should be one-time use.
Well, in the past, we haven't done that, so that's why we used the money we got from the federal government, spread over 2 years, keep the levy low. Correct?
That is
The one-time
incorrect.
use.
We used it for, no, we covered that. We used it for one-time equipment.
Nope, so
We used the debt for $300K, and then we used the $250, which was the remains of that fund, for a one-time purchase.
Yep. And then we used the ARPA dollars that were $360,000. We got a total of $720,000 from the federal government.
Yep.
$360 of it went to a one-time funding of the electrical extension line for the wellhead treatment plant.
Yep.
And then the other $360 went into the general fund to be utilized over 2 years to cover the tax levy. We used $180 every year, $182, $600 something.
So, yeah, I think that first chunk of that went towards, that was the broadband thing.
Correct. Yep. The first one went to broadband.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my point is I just don't want to do it again. That's all.
Yeah. My only point is if we're not going to buy something, we might as well take that money and use it for something. But another question for Marty then. On the loader, on the one-page sheet, just for clarification, the 1992 is no longer really reliable. So it's basically salvage.
It's what, sorry?
The 1992 loader is no longer really reliable.
No, it's
so
not.
you don't really use it that much.
No,
Okay.
we use it for loading salt trucks just at the shop. It's not something that you're going to send on a trip around the city with a plow on it, for sure.
You might have to go get it or something.
Yeah.
Right underneath that, it says we have a 2008 cat loader that will transition into the roll and also be available for snow plowing. So I guess my question is do you want another loader? Is that the,
Yeah, because the loaders are really helpful on doing the residential streets. They're not, they can't put the salt down, but they are quick to get there. They're great around the cul-de-sacs and managing that kind of stuff. And we will use it around the shop, during the summer and stuff for loading vehicles and for going out on site for doing work on gravel roads, that kind of thing. So it has an all-round use for the year. So we, two of those are what we're used to running with. We have two at the moment, and they're both used.
okay.
And it would, that one would be a good backup plow if, we have a truck go down or something like that. We could use that second loader to go out on the streets and do the plowing, and we would load the vehicles with the John Deere bucket truck, which isn't as efficient, but it will do the job in a pinch.
Okay.
So on that piece, I think that's maybe something we could probably find used too, depending on what's out there. If we start looking, I think that's something. I mean, you've got basically $400,000 set aside for the snow blower, for the front end loader, and the front end loader.
Yeah, the
It's
snow
for
blower's
brand.
going away, so I think that cost came down to about 400,000. I think was it
Well, 400's not for both of them. Isn't that what we said?
400, yeah, so I messed up when I put this together, when I wrote the long-term plan together.
Okay.
I have 80 for the snow blower and 320 for the front end loader.
We're
Totally
not-
400,000.
Right.
Right now, it sounds like the front end loader went up so much that we're not gonna even get the snow blower, it sounds like.
Yeah,
from what
that's
I got.
exactly it.
As that, so that the 80 needs to just go to the 400,000 for the front end loader and to get rid of the 80,000 for the snow blower.
Okay.
So either way, it's 400.
Either way,
That's
it's
what I mean.
400.
That's why
We're
it's-
just getting
yeah.
one less piece.
Oh,
Correct.
Yeah.
All the more reason to maybe look if there's a 22 model out there that is.
Yeah, I would. I mean,
Tax return,
I would.
something like that.
I would imagine might be able to save like $100,000 if we found something that was used in decent condition. That I'm not saying you got to buy something that's a 2012. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But I think you could probably buy something in the 2020s that you could find a good price on, and you could save a significant chunk of money.
We could certainly look into that. I mean, we've done that with other things that we bought recently
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
and I'm not averse to that idea. So if there's some savings to be done with that, then we can certainly look at it.
The other. Do you mind if I jump in real quick?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Come back.
The other piece I have is right below that is the skid steer stump grinder. So I have a couple concerns overall. I know we have the skid steer; it's fun to drive. It makes stump grinders for it. That's awesome. If the skid steer goes down, you no longer have a stump grinder. If you need the skid steer for something else, you can't use a stump grinder. And you can buy standalone stump grinders from $2,500 to $6,500 online, brand new. That are either like ones that companies use to grind the stumps. They're like a one-man deal with two wheels, and you can go out and get in tight places and get things. Or even some of the ones for $6,500 are like nicer professional ones that have like the screens that come up and everything. So I would encourage or maybe pressure you to find another option than trying to find one that works on the skid steer, because I'm sure it'll be the quickest, fastest, most fun toy that way, but I do think that there are other options that would save us some money. Like half the price of that, I think.
I
From
can
just
look
a quick
into-
Googling I did online, that's what I was able to find.
I will look into that. I think that we have two skid steers, so it gives us the flexibility, and to swap out tools on the fly is fairly easy with those, with the quick couplers and stuff. So we got the grapple and everything on site, so it's just moving from one thing to the other. It's really efficient to do that. I know it's going to be a safe option to do that, but I will certainly look into other options there.
That seems like an item that would show up in that, I don't remember if you called it a co-op, but that.
Municipality
The
sharing
joint powers thing, yeah.
Seems like a perfect thing for it.
There are some people out there with them. I don't know if anybody in our group has got a stump grinder. I mean, not a lot of people got a bucket truck or anything like that. We've used grapples from other people, but I could look into that
It
as well.
just seems like some of the stuff that isn't, I mean, it'd be different if it was something that you'd have to use after a storm or something, because now everybody's using it.
Sure.
But it just seems like that's I don't know.
Well, the stump doesn't have to be removed immediately either.
Right.
All right, the tree goes down, we clear the tree, right? The stump could be taken out 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, whatever, depending on.
Correct.
you
I
know,
mean,
if
we've
it
been
was in high
we've been-
demand and we couldn't get it right away.
We have rented stump grinders to do this. With our new tree program, we are taking out dead trees, and there's a lot more emerald ash trees that are going to be coming down in the city. So there's going to be a lot of use for that. And I was just thinking, if we're going to be using it that much, does it pay to rent it, or does it pay to buy it for that number.
So when you rent a sump grinder, are you renting one for a skid steer, or are you just renting a standalone piece?
No, we're renting for a skid steer.
And what's it cost you to rent it for the day?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't have that number on the top of my head.
All right, thank you.
And how often do you, I mean,
Well, we rented it for a couple of weeks last year because
Just
we
to
were
get
just
them
getting
all
this
done.
program running. But, the more we're doing, every year there's going to be more trees to take down. Like I said, with the emerald ash thing coming through, that's going to be a big impact for us, and it's going to get a lot of usage.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we don't need one. My point is I think there's probably, you don't think you need a $15,000 one. Like, I think you can get a really nice one from what I could, even when Zach and I were looking the other day, for $6,500, you can get a really nice one. It's just a standalone unit.
Well, I'll certainly
It's
look.
one more engine to change the oil on, I'm sure, but, your guys, I'm sure, can handle it.
Yeah, I will look into what that is. I mean, I don't think the guys are looking for fancy toys. They're just looking for something that is going to be safe and reliable to use on all the situations that they're going to be put into.
Yeah, sure.
I guess we're the,
go ahead.
you ready? You done?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
That's- As long as you're on a storm, I was gonna, I gotta commend you for firing out that used equipment stuff. Huh? I like it.
Hanging out with Scott.
Let's see.
Let's see. Now, let's really dig into the nuts and bolts of this whole program here. 12% is about 1.25 million, I think. Or 16%, I mean.
Oh, yep, sure.
Yeah.
Do the math.
Yeah, do the math quick.
We're asking for 18. So other than the 16% tax capacity, we still want another 2% on top of that. I am just, and this is strictly business for me, I am just not on board on the desired list. Somewhere along the line, we've got 185.3 that we have to fund. That's cost increases that are going up. On the desired list, I'll call it the wish list, you guys call it the desired list. If we are going to, and I talked to Danielle in depth the other night, if we are going to do the summer series for concerts, she's got a very limited budget as far as what kind of money she can spend for entertainment. And her idea, and maybe she's the one that put the sign there because nobody else knows about it. She would like to have 4 summer concerts of some sort there. So, in my opinion, out of the desired list, here's all I'm in favor of, and there's some stipulations with it. I would throw another $10,000 at the activity money for summer series, specifically for the entertainment side of it. That doesn't include no wage, I just don't see it being a full-time job yet. A year ago when Teresa left, we were told, yep, it's not a full-time job, but now all of a sudden, a year later, it is.
It's not being proposed as a full-time job.
Huh?
It's not being proposed as a full-time job. It's just going
From 30
more.
yeah,
Yep.
to
So
32.
from 20 hours
It's
to
just
32
not
hours
there.
a week.
I don't see it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't.
agree with that.
There's 3 or 4 events. I mean, they don't take. That'd be 250 hours for each event.
I think she has more than that.
Sure. You're just talking music events. She does way more than that.
No. No, we did the bunny rabbit thing out here, Easter thing.
Yep.
The Christmas signage thing,
Yep.
and I don't know if there's anything more.
The concert in the park, the family fun night.
Okay, so that's 4 events.
Yep. There were a couple more in there too, I think.
The garage sale.
A garage.
I don't.
The City Weddings Garage.
Anyway,
She also still runs
anyway,
the
I just
community
don't see that
center,
much
and she
time
takes
going
care of
in.
all the weddings that go on at the community center. In fairness to her,
She's going to give me. I would like to see a revenue list out of what happens at that community center. But anyway, I agree with the flock system. I think it's a good asset to have. Mainly for me, any missing child or abducted kid, that if that license plate runs across the deal, he's notified immediately. That's where I see value.
can I ask a question on that?
Yep.
So I agree, it's a valuable system. I'm not trying to
Yep.
downplay that with what I'm about to ask. How many of our neighboring cities have that system? Champlin does, right? Maple Grove,
He's already
Rogers,
sounded
Otsego.
off a whole bunch of them.
Champlin, Maple Grove, Rogers is getting them.
Otsego?
Anoka, Otsego, I don't believe has any.
So here's the question I have. When we talked, you said you put these at all the entrances into the city. if all the neighboring cities have them on our entrances anyways,
I
why
know.
do we need them on those same entrances? Why don't we just put them on the ones where they're missing?
Because we don't get the shared data.
But if the purpose of it is let's just say an Amber Alert, right?
Yep.
It's going to go through the system. They're going to run it anyways.
Share cost. Same.
So like, why would we have a camera here on the road and a camera there on the road? Because you can't see it. Because we can't talk to the neighboring city and say, hey, we think something went out. Can you just run this license plate through your database?
We know because it's not their system. So the FLAC system is owned by FLAC.
Okay.
And you have to become a member of it
Right.
to get their data.
So have we talked
if
to them?
Champlin doesn't notify us that they have an LPR hit, we're never notified unless we have the camera system.
And there's no mechanism to notify you from Champlin, right?
Correct. So right now, Champlin doesn't even receive the shared data from Anoka because they don't have the minimum amount of cameras required by FLAC to be part of the shared data.
So they do have a shared data program. You just have to have X number of cameras. How many cameras is X?
Yeah.
8.
So do we need 10 then, or we just need 8?
Technically, to cover every entrance and access into the city, it would be 10.
But if we have 8 and we have shared access, and then the other cities have them on the border, we don't need them on the border, right?
Well, it depends where they put their camera system. I can't
Right.
control where they're putting their camera systems.
And they're
I know it's only 2 cameras. It dawned on me the other day that we're literally going like this with cameras, and it seems wonky to me.
Yeah, some of them, I think Champlin has them along 169 and a couple other locations, but I don't know if they're covering every access into their city.
Okay.
The other area where I would see some value is if you get Stevens Park up, and you got a stage there and some other equipment there. If you had a camera at that entrance, you'd know if there was some vandalism going on, I would think. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if that helps or not, but.
We'd just be able to view if the license plates that were in the
Right.
park during that time, correct?
Right, yeah, so
Yep.
you got somebody to trace back to anyway. I
Correct.
mean, absolutely. So I see value to that
Yeah,
too.
again, I think it's valuable. My concern was just putting 2 cameras side by side. We're
Oh,
with
yeah,
the other
yeah.
cities and save everyone money by figuring out how to
seems
make.
silly,
Yeah.
Like Paul said though, you don't know
Yeah.
whether Rogers has got one on South Diamond Lake Road over by the Holiday, or if they have it right at Proctor.
Well, so I was wondering if we could work with them, and then if we could just pay Flock a smaller subscription and get access to the data. But
possibly.
it sounds like
Yeah.
we have to have at least 8 to do that. But if we were to coordinate well with our neighboring cities, we could probably save everyone money.
Yeah,
and cover
so-
all the entrances between all the cities.
So when we look into it, when we're actually going to buy them or purchase them, we'll look at where Champlin has their cameras and where Rogers has their cameras or where they're proposing their cameras. And then we'll make the decision if we need 10, 8, and then we'll place them where best fit throughout our city.
But we have to have at least 8 to get
Minimum
access.
of 8 to get
Okay.
the access of
Sounds good. Thank you.
There's another one here that's a big one. Actually, there's 2 more here that are really big ones. I can see value, and where I don't see the value yet, and I don't even know if I can be swayed. I talked to Champlin and Anoka. The full-time fire department, I just don't see it. And I don't understand how they can do it. Champlin does it with 2 full-time fire department people. Anoka's got 2. I don't understand why 2 cities of 25,000 and we're 10, we need 4. I'm just not there. However, and I talked to Travis a little bit about this at the park the other night, both of those cities, their medical calls go to the police department. I don't understand why we don't want to try that.
Because Councilmember Slonick, their police departments have minimums of 2 to 4. Ours is a minimum of 1 cop on at all times.
Yeah.
So we're not always available to respond to the medicals, and we're trying to be proactive also. With North being 15 minutes out, a lot of times having one of our guys on a medical for 15 minutes when they can show up and take care of the medical and we can leave the scene. That way the fire department's handling that portion of it.
There's got to be a way, some way that medical thing can be, and I have no idea how the call comes in. Does it say Susie fell and she needs help getting up? Do you know whether you need to send a fire truck right away, or whether or not a station or a Suburban works, or an SUV. I guess.
Councilman Slonick, yeah, I mean, we can make adjustments to what we send, but at the end of the day, currently right now, for a couple of reasons, we send our engine. The idea of what I proposed on June 11th in our email conversations, we're on the same page, I believe, you and I are, just maybe not an understanding of kind of how it works, if you will. You and I talked about a scheduling type thing, and the duty crew model is a scheduled system for the firefighters. It does provide some predictability. The problem that we get into, the reason for the request for the 2 full-time staff, is to balance the work-life balance of the firefighters. So currently right now, if you think about it, anyone on council with kids or other activities, this takes a lot of your time outside of your personal life. They have their family, and so their family, it might be they have 2 kids or 1 kid, and they have to get those kids someplace. Then they have their significant other, whatever their needs may be. Then they have their career, and then this is, depending on the first 3, it could be number 4. So from a recruitment and retention perspective, my proposal kind of balances that out. The recruitment part of it is $30 an hour, potentially. That gives some advantages to working at maybe the local grocery store or whatever else you can think of. But the bigger aspect of it is the retention part. Keeping firefighters is immensely difficult. I have 2 that are out on leave right now. Actually, I'm sorry, I have 1 that's out on leave right now. I anticipate that firefighter is not going to come back because they're not able to balance it out within their life, with everything else going on. So the retention part is huge. Cost of a firefighter, if we lose a firefighter, excuse me, it's about $17,871.50, roughly, to replace that firefighter for every firefighter we lose.
For the training and whatever.
Yep, training and everything else. So as you can imagine, every time we lose one, and then we lose 18 to 24 months of that training time, so I'm starting over again. So from that ability to respond and meet the needs of the community, we're struggling to do that today. The example is the structure fire that we had a lightning strike a couple weeks ago, a couple Sundays ago. We arrived with 4 firefighters.
6, I thought.
Well, 4 paid on call, Kevin and myself responding back as full-time staff to assist with that. But 4 firefighters were not able to do anything with. Did you put that? I'm going to have Zach pull up something that I think is important to articulate what it takes. I know, Scott, you had said that 25% of the department was outstanding response.
I think that's great, personally.
Unfortunately, to a structure fire, it's not. And I apologize, it's hard to read this, and I don't have my glasses on, so I'm going to stand up.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
Oh, no, not that. Still every time.
There we go. There we go. Thanks, Zach. This is what it's required or what's needed to fight a fire.
Switches.
Can you stop that?
We're deleting this.
Why does it do that?
I don't know why it does it. It does it every time.
Likes that picture better.
It does like
It's
that
in,
picture.
Slideshow loop.
Slideshow, yeah.
So we had 4 firefighters. 4 firefighters doesn't allow me to basically conduct, I'm limited to 2 in and 2 out. That's OSHA 1910.156. That is coming, more things are coming from that as we look towards that, those needs as well. But here, as you can see, total on scene would be 17. This is assuming down the road that we have our aerial in operation. In this case, it was imperative that we had one that took some time to get. But we have an incident command, so we have a chief officer, we have a ladder truck, that's 1 officer and 3 firefighters. And then we have 3 engines, 1 officer and 3 firefighters. And then 1 firefighter of the ladder trucks assigned to victim rescue, 1 firefighter assigned to incident command, and 1 officer firefighter assigned to what we call RIC, or rapid intervention team, in order to rescue our own. So with 4 firefighters, we had a significantly difficult time to put the fire out that we had. Part of it was not our issue. I need to reach out to the county commissioners because we had a significant issue at dispatch where we did not receive our auto aid for 45 minutes because the storm came through. That's that side of the house. So I'm working on that to develop a plan for Hennepin Chiefs to meet with the county commissioners and let them know that we need to have support at the county side for dispatch. But for us, 4 firefighters is not adequate. And it's not the fire department's fault. I had a discussion with the fire department last Thursday at training, saying, you know what, it's a Saturday night, it's during the summer, you guys could have been out of your cabin, you could have been out having a cocktail, whatever the case may be. So that's why we have the mass numbers, so to speak. So even with my request, because I'm sure the question will come up, with full-time staffing, is it going to fix that problem at 2:30 in the morning? The answer is no, it's not. But I think what it does do is with this full-time staffing, it does allow the firefighters to schedule themselves because they need to go side by side, if you will, for duty crew scheduling and full-time. And the reason for that is I went to the organization, the department, the firefighters, and asked them, what is the time commitment that you can give? And currently right now, they're all giving about 20 hours per month towards the organization. Roughly, that's broken down to roughly about 10 calls per month. And then we have training and maintenance. With the addition of full-time staff and implementing a duty crew program together, we reduce costs overall. We're not sending 12 people or, you know, on average right now, my calls are about, or on average response from firefighters, roughly 24 hours a day is about 5 firefighters. That's what we typically get. So to handle a medical, that will work. You know, Paul's officers are available. That helps with the lift assist and those things where if we have a bigger person that needs to be lifted, that's great. I mean, I know I gave the example, we had the fire in Dayton River Road earlier in the year. We had one officer on, his calls were stacking up, but we needed traffic control on Dayton River Road because we had to park our fire trucks someplace. So Paul and I communicate on a regular basis, how can we try to serve the community collectively together by supporting their operations or them supporting our operations. But the lack of predictability for paid-on-call firefighters is the biggest thing.
Right.
And what was turned in the council packet, I believe in June or whatever it was dialogue from the firefighters stating that we need to move in this direction because we're not able to sustain the continued call increase of the city over time. So we're continuing to see, you know, 70%. Lately it's been about 50-50 still between medical and fire type calls, not fires, but fire type calls. So this is my vision to help the city continue to recruit firefighters to maintain the system that we have, not a full-time model, if you will, but then also with our part-time firefighters, give them the ability and predictability so that they can continue from a retention perspective. Because like I said, more often than not, if I lose them, it's difficult to get them. So we're behind the 8 ball all the time trying to train people.
The other, just can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Quick? So the way I've looked at this is we're going to, for the number you gave us back in June or July, whatever month it was that we met, that number included two more full-time firefighters. It included the increase to pay the firefighters from approximately $17 an hour now to $30 an hour. It included them being on duty crew, so they have to sign up for what? I think
2 shifts. 2
shifts a month.
Yep.
And then they have to respond to 3 volunteer shifts, so they're free. They can make it, right? So that was the other piece.
Yeah.
And then it also gives them access to it because they're no longer using the fire relief for their retirement. It gives them access to better retirement options versus the pension, correct? So it's more than just hiring 2 firefighters. It's also about correcting some things at the fire relief, and when they voted on it, they voted that this is where they want to go. They'd rather make more money, and then they would be able to invest that themselves, and that was something that they want. So it's not just about just adding, the cost is not just adding 2 firefighters. The cost is kind of figuring the whole way the fire department works from a pay structure, a benefit structure, and we get 2 firefighters all for that cost.
So that's if you lump it all in one lump.
Correct,
But they're all separable.
correct, but even if, so let's just say we decided to get rid of the fire relief and then pay them more, right? We no longer get the fire relief money from the government because we can't apply it to the fire relief.
Yep.
So then the cost ends up being about the same, I think you said, right, Zach?
I don't remember. I asked the chief to run the numbers today because I wasn't sure exactly what the numbers are, but they're pretty close.
Yeah, so,
Based on-
I mean, I try to look at numbers today and kind of look at things. So, for instance, my request, if you look at salaries overall, the number that I had was, if everything was approved as requested, we would have $478,900.86 in salaries and benefits, if you will. But that's offset by, the benefit of this is the Relief Association no longer exists, and then those funds, which is 2% of the homeowner's insurance within the community, then gets returned back to the city and offsets not only the part-time firefighters' pension, it also offsets the full-time firefighters. So mine, my assistant chiefs, and the 2 new firefighters would offset that. Roughly, we never know till September when those dollars are going to come in or what those dollars are, but we anticipate, like for this year, that's about $80,000, and that's based upon this really odd formula based on commercial properties and whatnot. But we're, from a part-time salaries, if I stripped everything out and we just paid them $30 an hour based on a part-time inspector, responding to calls, probationary training, and regular training, along with all calls, which would mean structure fire, car accidents, significant events, if you will, we'd probably be around $260,130. But that doesn't help with, that's a $30 an hour, but that doesn't help with, might help with recruitment, but it's not necessarily, it might help with retention, but the idea of is I really need to, from a retention perspective and fundamentally a recruitment perspective as well, is I need to respect their time. There's not a good predictability of when there's a mass amount of firefighters available in the city. And it depends on what council and your constituents are looking for. Yeah, we're a huge insurance policy. No one likes to pay their car insurance, their homeowner's insurance and whatnot, but they're really glad they did when they did, when something happens. So the reality is I'm trying to look long-term. I believe the plan that was presented will probably hold us over for some period of time without making additional full-time requests next year or the year after. But again, that really depends upon the retention of the current firefighters I had. And I left it up to the firefighters. I told the firefighters, I said, this is your opportunity to voice your concerns to council through some of the emails that came through that I forwarded on what they're exactly looking for. And their ask is, to me, is that I can give you 20 hours a month that I'm giving currently. We did go back to them and ask them if they would just do a duty crew only model. But that was going to increase their shifts probably to 5 or 6 shifts a month at 4 hours, and that was not something that they wanted to do. So that's where those full-time hours are offsetting those so that we can maintain and slowly, incrementally move in the direction of adding full-time staff at a acceptable pace that keeps track, in sync with the budget.
So a couple questions. One is, so those hours, if you were to go to a duty crew, those hours still have to be hit, right? I mean, if you get the volunteers show up that you need, it just seems odd that an on-call anything isn't kind of better planned or scheduled than just whoever can show up. It's always struck me as odd. I mean, my dad was on the fire department. It always struck me as odd that a call goes out and whoever can show up shows up. When I work, when normally when you're on call with companies, you're on call.
Right.
And it always struck me as odd that we don't have a better system that tries to schedule that.
Well, that's what the duty crew model is basically, right? It's
And-
trying to get
and-
close to
Moving
scheduling.
towards this.
But you
Yes.
can do that on a regular.
And that's
crew,
what I'm not
too.
understanding is why the hours, seems to me the hours would be the same. It's just now they're randomized. There's a randomized factor as to who's going to show up at
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
who's going to cover Monday through Friday or those kind
Right.
of things, right?
Right.
right. I mean, the duty crew is, I've gone through my career when I was at Plymouth. Plymouth and Roseville started the duty crew program. And what they're seeing is that there wasn't enough availability for personnel during certain hours of the day. And that's the same thing that we have here. 72% of our calls are between 7 in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. Of those 72%, a lot of it's during regular business hours for folks. So when we looked at putting together a duty crew model, we have myself and Kevin here during the day, and then we augment that starting at noon when our calls start to pick up more so between noon and 10 with that third firefighter. And then if we had that part-time inspector here, that rounds out basically a 4-person crew at least right out the door very quickly. The issue that we get into is, like, I'll use Brooklyn Park as an example when I worked there. They went from a paid-on-call system like we are here, and they switched and they slowly incrementally went to it. They started with, I can't remember exactly, certain hours of the day. I think it was overnights, if I recall. They did overnight coverage. Well, when Kevin and I looked at the areas of need, that was only 28% of our calls, and to spend a bunch of money on overnights, we weren't getting the value back on what we were spending. So eventually, kind of giving, as Brooklyn Park as an example, they went to a 24-hour schedule where it was all paid-on-call firefighters that were filling 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The problem with that now is that full-time fire departments, to include Brooklyn Park and many others, they're stealing from other departments just from a pure pay standard. There isn't enough people that are interested in law enforcement, EMS, or fire departments. So we end up stealing from each other and not being able to build that need. So that 24-hour schedule, I would never be able to do that today like they did 10 years ago, because there isn't that interest within the field to do that anymore. You used to have 6,000 people as applicants down at the Minneapolis Armory for a few positions. Today, St. Paul and Minneapolis have maybe 200 firefighters or 200 applicants for many jobs, and they still can't fill it that way. So we're running into this issue of staffing, and it's not obviously just with public safety, but that's the biggest thing. So I can't get the people to move towards like a full scheduled 24-hour or 12-hour. We're really trying to take, hence my request overall is 150,000. The rest of the money, I know Councilman Slonk asked, so how are you getting 2 full-time staff for 150? At the end of the day, I'm taking the money that I've already been appropriated within the budget and moving it around and taking better use of it so that we're able to spread those dollars around, and then also utilize our money from the 2% where the relief would go away and fund pensions that we weren't able to do before, and then also provide a better pension for the firefighters as a whole. So it's really hitting on the two biggest things, is that recruitment of a firefighter once I get them, and then a retention, making sure they have predictability within their life, which then keeps them here.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm hearing from you is that these are separable, but they have impacts on the components. It'd be nice to see that, because what I'm seeing here is 2 full-time people are 142 grand. And then I do see that you have a reduction in the part-time salary because of what they're doing. And that's what gets it down to 142.
Correct.
Are there other, I mean, it'd be nice to see those other, how the pension works into this, because I I'm not seeing it right
I can give you and this might not be in front of you, Mayor. So for instance, we would put the firefighters into what's called the police and fire pension, so the same pension that myself and Chief Inga are in. The city contributes 17.7% to that as a budget item that Zach has to budget for. That 17.7% would be recaptured from no longer having a relief association. So those funds that would typically go to the relief association to fund their retirement, currently at $3,250 per year service, just as a review or recap. They're not fully vested until 20 years, so they're getting roughly about $64,000 after 20 years. In this system, at 17.7, let's just assume that they have a $10,000 annual income from the fire department. At 5 years, they're vested at 50%. They're 100% vested at 10 years. So we've cut that 20 years down to 10, more realistic. And then what it does offer is that it actually reduces, and Zach can fill in this a little bit, but it does reduce some of the costs associated with Social Security, I believe by 1%, because Social Security plus if we put them into para-coordinated, is that 7.5% contribution?
So they don't pay, so police and fire don't pay Social Security. They don't pay 6.2% to Social Security. They just pay the 1.45% to Medicare. That's it.
So we are making a little bit of a cost savings there. So when I look at just, and this doesn't include my pension or my assistant chief's pension, we have about $65,920.86. That would be offset by the 2% money for all firefighter pensions, if you will. So really, we're covering them with mine and Kevin's, and we're almost covering them at 100%. So there wouldn't be that need to, so to speak, budget for them out of taxpayer dollars. That's coming back from for Relief Association pension. So that's a little bit of a, just to try to show there a little bit.
Is that a lot of those miscellaneous savings incorporated into this,
All of those are incorporated in that number.
into that 63,000?
Yeah, so the 63,000 is, the Social Security difference, and then it's also the time on the salaries that are being saved on part-time salaries.
Okay.
Because at part-time, they have to pay the 6.2%, because they're not part of the police, fire, para program.
Yeah. Okay.
The other area where I really have some trouble with it is staff's at 18%, and I know I said 10%. I would squeak to 12 if I had to, probably. However, I want some of that ladder that we are going to need to pay for in 4 years. I want that included in there somehow.
So we don't have to bond for the whole thing?
Right.
We did.
I want City Hall to manage their money like the average American has to when they want to buy something.
I think the last engine
The problem that I have is
Pay the
we got
government
16% in
2-3 years.
tax capacity money, and we want 2% more.
It's half the cost of the thing.
Give government 10 cents, and they want 12.5. And I just
So Scott, I got a question for you. When are we talking about the budget again?
Next meeting.
Next meeting?
So it'll be 3 weeks.
If I were to come to you next meeting with a plan that would include not raising the current tax rate, even possibly lowering the tax rate, and saving money for the fire truck, and a plan for the next 2 to 3 years that looks like to make sure we have enough money for the fire truck, would you be on board with a plan like that?
Yeah, I'll listen to it.
That's not what I asked. Would
Well,
you be in
no,
favor of
I'm not going to say yes.
You can see.
Well, I get that, but I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. That's what you're looking for, right?
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
If you can keep it around 12, 13%.
Well, I'm looking at the tax rate, so either keeping the tax rate the same or even possibly lowering the tax rate a little bit.
That doesn't mean anything because if the county raises their rate 20%, everybody pays more taxes.
So you said the average home went up, 1% last year?
The average home went up 1% last year.
So what if I found a way to do it where we reduced it for the 2%, the 2% increase in homes?
14% is the
New
capacity.
growth, that is
Yep.
correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, now, somebody else has got 15 minutes.
We're burning. We're late.
Yeah, this idea is to have discussion here so that we can have some
More
direction
input.
for what staff needs to provide you. The idea is to have it at the next meeting to have a general consensus of where we're at with the budget.
Yep.
And we'll have a work session before the next council meeting, so we can hammer out all the other discussions, so that way we can be done with the budget for September. Doesn't mean we're done totally, just done for September,
Stamp it
preliminary.
Yep.
Yep. And then we can move on for other things, because we have the master plan and other things that are going on too that we gotta try to squeeze in somewhere, so.
That- Nothing's gonna happen there for 30, 40 years, so.
It's a different issue.
Every time you talk to me, it's a different year.
All right.
Moving on.
So
I'm done for today.
Come with more next time.
Okay.
Anything else from anybody else on any of the other budget
We'll
items?
come with more next time.
If you have some, please send me an email, send me a text message, give me a call. But it will be on the next meeting as well on August 10th.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
12th. 12th. Yes.
12th. Election is
Yes.
13th.
Correct.
Okay. Item H. Special event permit. Now, I don't know where we want to go with this, but I know Dave had some concern. He wanted to see if we could table this out, but and I have a feeling we're
So this is a
Go
public.
ahead.
This is a public hearing. So we need to have the public hearing
Yep,
tonight.
you're right.
And then you can elect to table it or whatever you'd like after that public hearing.
Yep. Sorry. Go ahead, Gary.
Does he need to open it or no?
Not yet.
Nope. He can
No.
open
Okay,
it
sorry,
after.
I just wanted.
You're good. Yep.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This has been kind of a collaborative effort between myself and Paul and all city staff at the end of the day. I just took the opportunity, because it has a pretty significant impact on the fire code, often when we have large events within the community. The reality is that we looked at the ordinance that was there. This has been a project that Zach and I and others have been working on since I've been here. The idea is to really articulate through our city ordinance what we're expecting of the public that may come in and apply. This breaks it down into two special events, one being a retail event if there's something going on at a retail area. I know we don't have a ton of retail at the moment, but potentially as we continue to grow some of the smaller areas, that will be of great help. The one example I can give you currently that with Amy's help became aware of course, we have Operation Zero coming up here on August 10th. I did put in the ordinance that the request or the requirement would be for any event centers that have an IEP or a CUP. There won't be a cost to them, but we would like to know what events they may be having. The reason for that is, for instance, Operation Zero, I believe, is on August 10th. My understanding, through Amy's help in an application for a liquor application permit, Fisher Farms is doing something the same evening. So two large facilities right across from each other. We would not have a good understanding for at least public safety or any services that are needed within the city to understand kind of what's going on. If something, a tornado came through, active shooter, whatever the case may be. So it's really just a request so that we have a better understanding from those areas that already have been given an event designation with an IEP or a CUP. It does break it down a lot more in fine terms of what we're looking for when they make that application. It does take some of the things that we had from the previous permit and bring it into this. Full disclosure, thanks to the City of Rogers, we looked at theirs. A lot of it is the City of Rogers ordinance, but it hit on a lot of things that, the requirements that I know Paul and I were looking at just to better understand kind of what people might be doing within the community. So it's kind of where we're at. I'm happy to answer specific questions as it relates to that.
I've got a couple.
I just want to make sure the one clarifying point on the first page of that ordinance, I believe, listed as a public event, is that this is only related to public events, not private events. So if this is a invite-only type event, this does not apply to that at all. So birthday parties or graduation parties, or if a business is having a employee appreciation thing or something, this does not apply to those things. If it's an invite-only and the public is not involved, it is not a special event permit. If it's open to the public, would then be required to pull a special event permit.
So if someone is using their farm
Yep.
to have a wedding, but it's not there, because we had this problem, I think, up on South Diamond, wasn't it?
Yes.
Would this then could this cover that or not?
No,
This would then not cover that because it
That
would
would
be
be an
underneath
invite-only
a
type
private
situation,
event.
yeah.
Well,
Unless money's exchanged in hands for use of the
Yeah.
property, then it becomes a business, correct?
Correct, yeah. I
So
don't-
then it would
It's a
require.
different
that-
problem.
Yeah, that
Correct.
would be,
I just want to make sure on the
that
same
one might
page.
be the difficult one because I think it's for private events, it's made for
yeah, if they had
invite
a,
only.
to your point, Councilman Trost, we can't have a private citizen renting their land to a single event, say a wedding or mitzvah or a graduation or whatever, because that seemed to be what was happening.
Yep.
And that's where it causing the traffic issues on South Diamond.
But if they want to do that, they still could. They just have to come in and apply, correct?
They have to apply, just like anyone else
Yep.
would. The idea that comes in here, the fire code comes in, and you'll see that it says 50 people often in here.
Yep.
50 is the number, and that's based on fire code and requirements that I'm required to enforce within that. Erection of a tent, we have to go and take a look at that. The numbers coming in there for 50 and so forth. So if you're having a birthday party at your home and you're having 100 people over, there's no impact on that because that's a private event. Graco had an event recently, or is having a recent, an employee event. Again, not a public event. We just want to know, is there a need for, something happens, a storm comes through again or whatever, really to give all city staff, Marty included, what resources might be required from city staff in order to help mitigate whatever that event happens to be.
So my other question is around, you mentioned the parcels that already have event center permits. So I know the recent example that you said it would have been nice to know. We might not have approved it. Who knows, right? And we're not going to charge a fee for people that already have that permit, correct? That for their property.
Correct. Yeah, if they've
And
been given that designation.
a lot of that information you're asking for is around like, what if something happens, right? They already have the active shooter, or there's an emergency. They already have those plans in place as part of their event center permit.
Yep.
So can we have a shorter version that they would fill out if they already have an event center permit? And it's just, maybe it's like 3 questions. I don't know, whatever it is, like something much shorter because you don't need all that same information.
No.
And then otherwise they're just putting, see my IUP, see, and that's just a waste of their time and a waste of our time. What we really want to know is, what day is it going to happen? What's it going to be? And how many people are expecting? So that way we aren't, like you said, booking things super close together that then could cause issues for traffic or whatever else. We're trying to keep the city operating, correct?
Correct, yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Okay.
And even that's to say, like, is hopefully in the near future, Fisher Farms is able to rec their event center as they desire. We're not interested in if they have a wedding in there. A lot of this really is
it's
more
public event versus
more
private.
public event and then outside events where we might have to, that's probably the biggest thing is those outside events where we have a lot more factors that come into play.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Mayor, did Councilman Fischant have questions, or he was?
He did,
Okay.
but he didn't relay them to me. He just
Okay.
wanted us to, he wanted to be involved in the discussion.
Understood.
And I'm a little bit confused by that previous discussion. So I didn't see in here where if somebody rented out their property, now I didn't go through this, I mean, I drifted through this thing, but it's,
Is it legalese a little bit?
yeah.
Yeah, I went through it line by line, and
There's
I
a
felt
whole
like
lot
I
of
needed to kind of
government-
go through line
There's a
by
whole lot
line
of
on all
pressure.
this stuff too, so.
Yeah,
You can thank the city of Rogers for that.
Well,
Well, they've got a
no,
lot more
we're sucking it
commercial
up.
and a lot more build out.
We don't have to follow what they do.
Nope.
No.
So if somebody rents their property to say a birthday party, you're saying that they would have to get one of these, the renter or I would assume the property owner.
Yeah,
And-
the property owner would need to
And I didn't see that in here.
make
Is
that request.
Didn't either.
Yeah, we didn't really cover
Well,
that, if you will. It was more of, well, a public perspective, I guess. I don't know how many people are renting their property, I guess, to have outside of the one instance that we had last year.
And I thought the problem with that was I don't know at what point we require, just hate saying this, what we require to let them do that. But, I mean, we do have a business license requirement at some level. And if you're renting your property out, it should fall under something instead of this. So that was my question. Or, I don't know. I just, some of this stuff.
I think we're just trying to avoid public nuisances is the main thing that we're looking at trying to do.
But-
We can use the example that we had recently with the birthday party that happened on Diamond Lake,
Yeah.
where it was
Yeah.
a larger birthday party. They didn't apply for anything because they said they weren't going to have that many people. They ended up having a band and all kinds of people. We ended up with calls about noise ordinances and issues. We had to send out then a police officer that we only have maybe one of
Yeah.
to then attend to the thing to say, hey, you have a problem, there's an issue. Then we left, it got more calls, then we had to go back and shut the
But
party
they wouldn't have
down.
been covered under this.
They,
Was it
yes,
private
correct,
event?
yep, correct.
So
This doesn't
This
fix the
doesn't
problem.
fix
That's what I
that
mean,
problem.
yep, correct.
It just seems like we're,
I think we have to add that language in there somehow into that ordinance if we wanted to do that, related to hosting a
I
party
think
or
to your
something.
point, that's more a separate
Business,
issue of
yeah.
running a business.
yeah,
or
it seems
a-
like it's a different issue.
It probably is, yep.
And I really have a hard time with an activity center needing, even if it's to fill out a reduced version. It strikes me as bureaucratic.
I don't disagree, but look at what happened because we didn't know, right? That's my piece of it. I
And
mean,
what happened?
What happened?
we've got you just do the two
We've got
events side
two
by side.
events
Yep.
that we need to be prepared
Are
to
we
be
going
able
to
to.
protect against everything in the city?
No, but just a
It's
little
not
bit more.
necessarily protecting
It's
against
adding
it
more
or denying
communication
it,
to the
it's
process.
having the knowledge of,
It's
so
not an
that
application.
in a natural disaster or something happening, you
Or
know
something
that there's a
significant going
lot of
on.
people in that area. It's not saying, no, you can't have your event that night because
So
there's one across the street.
So we're
It's
gonna
just
have-
being notified.
we're going to have a different application then for them?
I
That's what
think
I'm
we could have a
suggesting. We
much
need, like,
simpler,
yeah.
even email notification of
Yes.
like, hey, public event, these dates.
And that'll be for activity centers.
Event
For
center.
event centers.
Events,
Approved
Yes.
special
properties,
events.
Because I don't want someone. What's the point of getting the event center done if then you have to do this every single time? If
Well,
it's so, and that's why I was like, well, we're not going to charge them a fee because that's just they already went through all the work.
I understand
My thing
that.
is just let us know because I think there is a larger public safety issue. Like I said, if something does happen,
I just think the odds of an issue popping up rather than putting the burden on those activities.
And if you don't like that
Seems like
language, you can strike the language, the IUPC
Well, I
thing.
feel like there'd be a lot that would get struck out of this.
Getting
Yeah,
permission.
the general aspect.
it's not a
is we'd like to-
permission though.
Really?
So in a scenario,
Those ones I don't
in
think
a
it is.
scenario
Just let
for
us
Dean's
know.
They can deny
Pumpkin
it.
Patch,
For
are
the
we gonna have them
IUPC,
get 60 permits? Or are they gonna get a permit from September 1st till November?
Yeah. that
Is
would be
it different for the IUP, CUP kind of conditions?
Correct, yeah, I think we need to adjust the language in the ordinance.
to reflect.
Related to what is on the IUP and CP and what we're requesting for them.
Okay.
Again, it's
Right.
not necessarily that we need to monitor like the other special events that we're looking at. We are looking to say, okay, you're gonna sell pumpkins, for your example, Scott, from September 1st to October 31st. Wonderful, thank you very much, that's all we need to know, that's it. I don't think we're looking, I mean, again, we can probably guess that, but.
Well, if it's as simple as that, it certainly doesn't have to be a couple of pages long.
The special event ordinance has, I think there's some things in there that are, which is why it's so long, is because there's lots of caveats to it, which is why it's not just straightforward.
Yeah.
The CUP, IUP ones should be very straightforward, because we're expecting them to have
Yeah.
events.
On a
It's
regular
their business
basis.
function,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
We just want to know, okay, when do you operate? Okay, that's great, now you know. Because we're expecting, in an ag property, running an event center, we don't know when they're running those events. And not saying we want to monitor them, because we don't care, but just to notify us, like, hey, it's not going to be used for ag today, it's going to be used for 1,000 vehicles. Wonderful.
watching a movie in the field.
Yep,
or-
that's great.
Are we ready for a public input?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I'll open the public hearing for ordinance 2024-10. Does anybody want to?
Lead the pack.
I got fallen pole. Amanda Fisher, Fisher Farms, 16900 North Diamond Lake Road. Up until a few hours ago, I was going to go a lot more hardcore on my little speech tonight. Thank you, Zach, for touching base and reiterating that this was not against IUPs and CUPs. Overall, I understand the desire for this. However, it needs a lot of work before you make it a full-on ordinance. There's a lot of language. I was reading through it that there's so many ifs, ands, or buts, and our city is not Rogers or Brooklyn Center or Minneapolis. We're not there yet to be able to have a lot of this language in there. The biggest thing that brought a lot of us here tonight is the fact that on that first page includes designated event centers and IUP or CUP. Does not say what you just verbally discussed in the aspect of not requiring us to pay. I think that also the definitions of what people have to pay to do this need to be defined better. Because some cities are anywhere from a $200 fee to $1,000 or $1,500, and for Dayton residents to have to pay that kind of cost seems a little exuberant. So, kind of that all being said, it needs to get defined better before it gets pushed through, and make sure that it's either the IUP and CUP process or this. It can't be both. Now, for fee purposes.
Right.
Because I know I myself have paid thousands and thousands of dollars to get through my IUP and CUP process, to now have to be told I'm going to have to pay more. So, yeah, I think that was my main part.
The one thing, if I may,
Go ahead.
just to make sure that you're aware, there are going to be additional fees for you as it relates to the fire code. Because I'm going to have to come out and say, I think you're erecting a tent this weekend, or in a couple of weeks, or no?
No.
Okay, so
I
just
don't
this
have
is
any tented events.
sure. If you're not having any tented events, it's not a big deal. But there's a tent requirement per the fire code, and we have a tent fee to inspect that, and that can be once or it could be multiple times depending upon. That's just the state fire code requirement. So there could be that. You know, with the
Was that written into the IUP ordinance?
it's-
We have to, just
in your
verifying.
in your IUP, yes, it is, because it states that you must follow all the fire code.
Okay.
So that's kind of that lumps it in, at least from my perspective, the fire code. So that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. I know I had the opportunity to go out to the deans and talk about things that need to be addressed there as it relates to the fire code. So
Yeah.
a lot of it does come back to the fire code, and that's when we implement the fire code, it's the minimum fire code. It's not the maximum. I'm not doing anything more than what the state requires me to enforce. Just to be clear on that as well. So
Right.
So, Chief,
No,
if
I'm not throwing up a building and expecting to just do stuff. I'm following all my permitted requirements. So I've been running permit required businesses for 15 years. I'm not afraid of a permit.
So if somebody goes through and applies for a permit and they put up so when you say tent, are you just talking about a roof?
yeah, so I mean, it has to be fire retardant, and it depends on the size. Off the top of my head, I think it's like 400 square feet in that nature. We'd have to come out and inspect it. It could be, if they keep it up, it could be a one-time inspection. If it's up and down numerous times, we'd
And
have
what
to
are
go
we
out.
charging for that inspection?
I believe that inspection fee in the fee schedule, I think, is
I think it's $75.
$75, I think.
Yes.
One person, 1 hour kind of thing.
I have a very sour taste in my mouth.
That means a 40 by 60 tent for a concert would have to be inspected, correct?
Yeah, sounds like
Yeah,
it.
something like
That
that.
hosts-
All we're
Okay.
trying to
People
do,
inside
Mayor and Council, is there's a cost for us to go out and do this.
So don't go out.
Well,
I guess my question, yeah, when it comes to the tent, what are we inspecting for?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity.
it's a fire requirement so that if that's, a lot of times, some places will have sides on it, so that then it can
Sure.
consider an enclosed building.
And that's
Then if they heat it
Egress
or
issues.
That makes
that
sense.
stuff.
Yeah, to
But,
some extent, that makes sense. I was talking about just say tent.
yeah, like
Yeah.
just a canopy or
canopy.
whatever. Yeah, we're still required to do that because I guess the best way to describe it is common sense isn't all that common. And sometimes people start fires under those type of things, and then we
Well-
have bigger issues. But that, yeah, that's the business that Paul and I are in sometimes.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Come on. Yep.
Yep.
Actually, do we?
No.
Yeah, public hearing. we-
Just state your name and address.
Just state your name and address.
So, Jack Burns, I'm a citizen, of course. I own property in Dayton that will eventually have to then center. And,
Oh, can you go in front of the mic there?
oh yeah.
Or just pull the mic in front of you, yep, there you go.
That's heavy.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I'm also a commissioner on the Economic Development Authority. I would say, when I came here because I heard about it and I read the first page and the IUP and CUP were included and, all the things. So after the discussion, lots changed. But I do think something like this, particularly as it relates to businesses that have a CUP or IUP, should look at what really is needed, because they're already formed as a business to do exactly these things. And so to put additional requirements on is burdensome, maybe necessary, but burdensome. And how do you make that, that's our mission at the EDA, right, is to look at it from a business-friendly perspective with the same backdrop as, we got to look at the community and the safety and all these other things, but you don't want to make it so hard to do business in Dayton that nobody wants to come here. So that would be my comment, and I think you're headed down that path, it sounds like, from the comments, but just to look at it from that perspective. And, maybe it's just the name itself. Maybe it's not a special event permit. Maybe it's a party permit or something else, which is where it seems to be more the focus of the public component. It's, what's the difference between private and public? Because I would see that, probably all weddings a business would have would be private, I think. But I could see where someone say, no, they're public, so. And if you're doing them every weekend or twice a weekend or whatever, that could be quite a requirement. So think about that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
Anybody else? Come on.
Yeah, cool to say.
Okay. Anybody online?
If you wanted to speak in the public forum on this topic, use the raise your hand function. Not seen.
I'll close the public hearing then.
Sure. Do we want to?
Huh?
Do we have to?
Oh, yeah, I don't.
You do not have to close the public
Because
hearing. if you don't
maybe
want
this
to.
would be an opportunity.
Right. So
We
if,
just have to make sure if you do not,
If
you
we-
table it, so we can close the public hearing at the next meeting if you want to do
Yep.
that.
okay.
I have a question. Could we
Go ahead.
close the public hearing and still just table it for next week?
You can also do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just,
for the next meeting, not next week, but.
Well, yeah, sorry. Yeah, next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
would there be a reason to keep the public,
Hearing open.
That's up to you guys.
I don't
Yeah, I
think
guess
so.
that
I mean,
just, I don't know
Yeah,
what the
I-
optics of that would look like if we kept it open or if we kept it closed. I was
I mean,
just wondering if it
it's
made
probably
sense to
6 apiece,
capture.
I guess.
I mean, usually the
the more
planning
ideas.
commission tends these anyways, and then they hand them over to us afterwards. It's not.
Track
Yeah.
ideas.
I'm gonna make a motion to table this baby.
All right, well, are we okay with closing the public hearing then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna
I'm
take
okay
feedback
with
from
that.
anybody that's willing to give it to me, so I mean,
All right, well, I'll close the public hearing. And you have a motion to table it.
Just so we're on the same page, is that so David can weigh in?
Yeah, that, and I want to read through every line of this thing. I doubt you do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would definitely like to go over it again, and I don't know if we want to clean it up before the next meeting?
That was gonna be my suggestion,
Yeah.
is, I don't know what the right motion is, and I'm gonna suggest something.
So-
If it's wrong, let me know. Maybe we motion
So
that
we're
this
gonna
gets
have to go
cleaned
through
up
it,
by
send our
them,
comments to him, and he can clean it up.
and then we
Yeah.
would that be okay?
That'd be
Okay, I just don't wanna be in the same spot where
Right.
we have to clean it up,
Yeah.
and then we can see what it looks like, and
Yeah.
hopefully clean up a lot of concerns people have that way before it even gets to it, and then we can always ask for feedback again next week if
Yeah.
we want to.
So
Alright.
if each of us will clean it, send our cleanup to Zach,
Or suggested
Gary.
edits.
or
right?
either one.
Suggested edits.
Or
Yeah.
suggested edits.
Yeah, if you guys have some suggestions, please send them to Zach, and then we'll
Okay,
Yep,
Work
we
through it.
can, we can coordinate.
Are you making that motion?
yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay.
So it is, okay. Okay, so all those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All those opposed, say no. Motion carries to table it. And that's that.
It'll be on August 12th, just to make sure everyone's aware.
That is a Monday. What?
Yeah, that's-
I got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, item I.
All right.
It's okay, you can leave. If you don't want to stay, you don't have to. You're welcome to if you don't have.
Item I.
Mayor and members of the council, we had that park commission that was open. It remained open, looking for applicants or reapplicants. In that time frame, the same day within hours, I actually received a new application and a reapplication. So Doug, in fact, did reapply, and then we also had interest in with a new applicant as well. So now you do have a choice between the two. I just need to know who you would like to appoint to the park commission to fill the opening.
Let's start.
I think her name is Kaya.
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 Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna go with.
Yep.
Don't know if it's a.
Who wants to go first?
It's all you, Scott.
Heads or tails?
It's all you, Scott.
I'm gonna make a comment here, and don't anybody take it too personal, but
I think we've all learned that.
What you're saying is it's
I
highly
want
personal.
some new blood here. This park commission just seems to everything is decided in this building, and that's what happens. The
Okay.
park commission doesn't wait. I want new blood.
So I'll make a motion then on that to appoint
Kaya.
Kaya to Parks Commission then.
Okay,
Do you?
Yeah.
we got a motion.
Oh, second? Yeah, I'll second
That's
that.
what okay.
But more discussion.
We got more
Got a
discussion.
motion?
Yeah.
Well, we can keep talking if you want.
No, I'm done. And put my point right out there.
Yeah.
That was for Kaya.
Yep.
Any more discussion?
I just want to thank Doug for a quarter of a
Yes.
century on the Parks Commission as the watershed
He's still
There's
on
a
there.
nuclear
He's
school
still on
that
that.
made
Yeah,
the
but he's
watershed.
also the liaison then for the city for watershed
For watershed.
as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
He still will be that.
He will be.
That is
Okay.
not, that does not
Cool.
change. Yep.
And
But
that gets decided at the first
Yep.
meeting every year, so it could be him again next year.
Yep.
I just want to
If he
say,
wants it, yeah.
Right.
just want to say thanks to him for that. It's been
He
a long
joined while I
time.
was on Parks.
Is that your start? Is that where you got it?
That was my start. Ben.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate Doug's input and his insight, especially when I ran for council and everything back in 2020. It was a big help and a big, it's kind of helped me understand the layout of their mission and all that stuff. So I appreciate all his hard work, but I like the optics of Kaya too, coming in with a lot of background as well.
She has a
So
lot
I
of
think
background,
she'll emulate a lot of the things that Doug found valuable too. So
All right, any more discussion? We got a motion and a second to appoint Kaya. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 4-0. And if there are no objections, we will be adjourned. We're adjourned.